Good evening, good morning, wherever it is that you are listening from. Welcome to WTF Walk the Floors, all things hospitality training. This is Michele Kline with Kline Hospitality, and I am here with my co hostess, Stephanie Ledger, with First Rate Hospitality. Stephanie, how are you today?
Very well. How are you today, Michele?
I'm doing wonderful, and I know that we have a guest in the house that is as enthusiastic as I am. So I am so excited to have him here. Please tell us who we have and what the topic for the day is.
Yeah, absolutely. So we're going to be going out onto the sea. So it's so nice to have a great friend, Harrison Liu, that comes from the cruise industry. And so as we're talking about, with hotels out on the water.
Excellent. Wow. It's such a pleasure. Thank
Lovely.
you for having me, Michelle and Stephanie. This is a real honor. I'm a longtime listener, first time caller, and I'm really looking forward to our conversation.
Perfect. So let's
Fantastic. So go for
oh,
it. Go for it, Stephanie. I'm
no.
just so excited.
I know. It's that full moon that's going on right now. But so excited that Harry. So let's start off with talking to our viewers and listeners, giving your background in the hospitality industry and why you're an expert in the cruise industry.
Super. Well, I have been working in cruise and travel and hospitality for nearly 20 years now. Prior to that, I used to do technology, public relations in New York City. I had a chance to move down here to Miami some 19 years ago. Was and it was a public relations job, and it exposed me to actually my client at that time had the Love Boat, the actual ship that they filmed the series on back in the 70s. So I caught the bug. I've been working for cruise lines ever since. And somewhere in the middle there, I also did about 2 years over at Four Seasons on the magical island of Nevis. So there's a lot of similarities between cruise ships and a resort. And here to just give you both some of my observations. All right.
Wonderful.
Yeah.
Well, and then, so going into, talking into the cruise industry and also to your experience with being on land, of working for a wonderful hotel.
Mhm.
So can you give us some insight of how you're seeing similarities with the cruise industry and the operations, and then some, other ways that it's very different?
Sure.
We're talking about with scheduling and things like that.
Sure. I would say that a cruise ship is pretty much just like what you would find at an island resort. Caribbean resorts. I also know have visited a lot of Caribbean resorts where ultimately these places they have to generate their own power. They have to provision through cargo particular ingredients for their restaurants, all of this. And of course, they're running, they probably have a yacht or a motorboat that they're offering for the guests to use. On a cruise ship, it's very similar departments. However, the staffing level in these different departments, of course, are very different. When you're talking about the marine department, where a hotel or resort would hold 3 or 4 engineers who know how to work a powerboat. On a cruise ship, there's a staff of 50, ranging from the captain down to first officers, and they do everything when it comes to navigating the ship. Also, similar to resort, you have an engineering department, right? To fix all the ACs and also to get the grounds fixed up. Well, on a cruise ship, the engineering department also runs a 3-floor high engine that takes up 3 rooms across a ship. There's of course a hotel staff, and that's probably the second largest department. The hotel staff, they manage rooms, housekeeping staff, front desk help. There's also the food and beverage staff, and they're the largest department. Because generally I come from large ships and small ships, but nevertheless, there's always some sort of food being served, and the F&B department is always on that. And then on a cruise ship, the larger the cruise ship, the larger the entertainment staff. Sometimes, I've worked for cruise ships where they have 50 entertainment members of the team. And I actually worked for a cruise line that offers ice skating rinks on board, real ice
Wow.
skating rinks on, I think, maybe some 12 of their ships. And you've heard of the ice capades. This cruise company actually employs more ice skaters than the ice capades because they have so many, probably a 12-member troop per every ship. And they have 12 ships sailing around the world, a rotation of performers. It's really amazing how cruise lines have really every professional practice under their roofs, because now they've also got to deal with international travel, tariffs, and cabotage and all that kind of stuff. So that's where it's similar, you know. And gosh, I've launched some of the world's largest cruise ships. The largest cruise ship I have launched had approximately 2,700 staff and crew members on board living there.
So, Harry, just to give our audience a little bit of perspective, when you say 2,000 team members, what is the relation to the amount of rooms?
So what I'm talking about would be the largest cruise ship currently in operation. That's 2,700 staff and crew members for approximately 6,400 guests. And I don't mean to get technical here because you guys are from the hotel and resorts world, business world. You know about RevPAR, and the whole thing about RevPAR is you're looking at the average daily rate, right? And with the presumption that if you don't sell that hotel room tonight, you get to sell it again tomorrow. You don't get that kind of economics with cruise ships. They're going out 5, 7, 14 days. So they're looking at, they call it per diems, because in the end, they're trying to see how much can they get a guest to spend per day, because it's all fixed costs, right? You know, the housekeeping staff, you don't get to cut back on,
You don't get to
the
send them home.
staffing.
There were too many D&Ds.
Yes.
Exactly. So, the thing about it, there's a lot of fixed costs in cruising, and what they do is usually they try to, back in the good old days, pre-pandemic, ships would go out 100+% occupancy. That means that 6,400 guests that I mentioned before, they're counting double occupancy, 2 heads per room. But there are pull-out beds, sofa beds in those rooms too, that can make 3 or 4, and sometimes they have suites where they can occupy up to 12. So all of these things, the more people they can cram into a room, that brings their capacity above 100%. And they want to shoot for that every time. Ship never sails empty, because an empty
That
room
is
is a
so
loss.
fascinating. Staffing
Yes.
in cruise ships, I think is just fascinating.
Right.
It's incredible. And it has to be um, a game of numbers, right? We think we play a game of numbers when we're inland, but not really. So, what
Right.
would you say, Harry, is your most favorite thing about being on that side of the hospitality industry, where now you are, developing these experiences that are going to be in a completely remote location, sometimes middle of nowhere? What is your most favorite thing?
Well, I will admit to you, I've been all over the world on cruise ships, but I have not seen much of the world. Most of the time, I'm going to Hong Kong, and I go through the airport, go straight to the port, and then I'm on the ship. And if it's training or if it's hosting, I try to add in a lot of different levels to maximize my time on the ship. I would say it's the variety and the speed. Um, Gosh, yeah. I hate to admit to the world I'm addicted to speed, but it's true. The pressure of filling those rooms definitely adds on to a lot more pressure for all the departments involved in a cruise line. So, but you know what? It's very rewarding. Every morning you wake up in a different place. And well, I mean, here's the thing. I've always been an executive coming in on board, so I get a guest room. I mean, you guys know, corporate comes, they get a guest room, whereas, because occasionally the ship was filled with guests, and I actually stayed in one of the crew rooms. Those crew rooms are below the water level, generally windowless. Actually, there are no windows down below the water level. Sorry, let me take that back. And there's 2 to 4 crew members stacked in there in probably what is a 100 to 150 square foot room.
Yeah. You can
But
only imagine the back of the house, so what we consider the back of the house, I guess below the water.
yes,
What the employee dining room looks like. You have the medical team that you need to have, and then I think also too with the cruising, when it's the employee side, is there's so many different cultures as well. And as a department head, of really being able to bring your team together with so many different cultures being represented, and then also too of how long the employees have been on. Some are probably just ending their routes, and some are just hopping on to be able to take over for those that are leaving. And I think for a leader too, that's a lot of juggling of knowing, okay, they only have 3 weeks left, or oh, these employees this is day one.
yes, absolutely. You're so right. It is amazing because generally on a cruise ship, you'll find as much as literally 120 plus countries represented on board on the staff and crew side. They come from all over the world. Majority of them, I would say, probably in ranking order of the top number where you find workers coming from. The Philippines alone, 25% of all Filipinos are working on a ship, not necessarily a cruise ship, but they're the new Vikings. All right. 25% of the population is always at sea. They're working in the engine room. They're working on cargo ships. Southeast Asians, they would come in second. They usually are in the housekeeping staff or on the F&B staff. Every island in the Caribbean culture is represented also on a lot of these things, and a lot of South American countries. What cruise lines are looking for is, of course, the employee, the staff member, the crew member, being able to speak English, come across fluently, and also familiar with Western culture, so that they can serve the majority of it's mostly American and Canadian travelers on cruise ships. The United States is the largest cruise market, followed by Canada, followed by England, and then you have like Australia or India or Brazil coming along as some significant travelers on cruise ships. But it's something dealing with one of your earlier episodes, right, about leadership. How do you lead? And it does, that almost is a WTF moment for me. I will tell you that, to watch a manager lead his or her staff, looking at, I remember there's a Jamaican lady who is like chief housekeeper for certain floors. And she has a team of 40 housekeepers. And they're coming from Eastern Europe. They're represented in from East Asia. It's really amazing how to also bridge that culture and language gap. They speak English, but going from also being able to relate as a leader, right? You can't always just be formal or whatever. How do you be more casual, be more friendly, and be more accessible, in the back of house? in
Okay.
order for them
So,
to
Harry, it's very clear that you deal with many different ethnicities and many different backgrounds, and it's which makes the experience so much richer. Now, when it comes to the generational differences, do you see across the board that you host many of those, like maybe two or three different generations within the same ship? Or would you say that it's more geared towards like a younger, like your crew is younger, or perhaps like in specific roles like
Mm.
engineering, maybe you have an older crew? Or what does the generational differences look like?
I feel, based on what I've observed in hotels and resorts, I feel it's similar. There are some old timers, some lifers, they're in their 50s, their 60s, both in high level positions and also just front line, as a waiter or as a housekeeper. It really just runs the gamut if you're able to be on your feet, to be able to lead. Really, leading is very, very important when you are with 2,699 other people on board 24/7, right? There's no privacy. And part of that
Yeah,
is always to come across as a leader. Um, and to get back to your question about the age, you see that all over the place. However, you'll find maybe the entertainment staff tends to be younger, in their 20s, early 30s. I would say, oh gosh, a lot of more of the guest facing. The housekeeping staff ranges all over. Here's the thing: it is a United Nations, and it is a generational work experience. A lot of folks
that's
have
fantastic.
found their mentors on board. I mean, you're not just the best of the United States in hospitality, but you're finding some of the best managers in hospitality around the world.
Wow. So let's change gears now. Let's talk about some of the predictions of what we could see happening in 2023. We know that the cruise industry, was definitely hit probably even harder, actually harder than us in the hotel
Yes.
industry. And, they're making record numbers on coming back strong and fierce. But what do you foresee will happen here in 2023 for the cruise industry?
I think it's still going to be a year of recovery. 2024, perhaps we'll see something, maybe get back to the pre-pandemic levels. Right now and the thing is, there's a lot of new cruise ships also coming out. So we're going to
Mhm.
see some introductions of new cruise ships. Back in the day, cruising is very much akin to all-inclusive resorts. When you open up a trade magazine, you're going to see all-inclusive resorts as one of the main advertisers, and then you flip another page, it's going to be another cruise line. So they're very similar business models about making sure the rooms are always filled and always getting a nice rotation of guests. So it comes. Shoot, I'm sorry. Repeat your question again.
Just the predictions. What do we see happening? So we think that we really
That's
want.
right. Okay. Sorry, lost my thought, but that's okay. Reason why I mentioned this is about which I brought up marketing is, with news cruise ships, there's new interest. It generates excitement, and generally when there's a major resort opening or a major cruise ship being launched, you'll find a lot of marketing dollars put to that. So marketing of cruise lines and has really declined up until now. They're generating that up with new cruise ships. You're going to find like a new this or an innovative that, or never seen anywhere on earth kind of experience on a cruise ship. And I think that's going to help drive folks to come back to the sea. But here's the other thing, it's partly to answer your question. Only about 15% of Americans have cruised before.
Wow. So
So
there's still an incredibly untapped market there.
Absolutely. 85%, of American citizens have not cruised before. And I will tell you, cruising is one of the best vacation values. Most of it, I believe all of them are all inclusive, as in like, you get 3 meals a day and, lemonade and iced tea and waters are included. Everything that you basic needs of a great vacation.
Yeah.
The service, I mean, not to compare it to shoreside, I do feel like a guest would get a disproportional amount of more service on a cruise ship.
Yeah.
But that's also another thing about it is because they're working mostly for tips.
Mm-hmm.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah.
So Harry, how do you think operators keep their team members engaged day to day, given that they're out there and they don't get to see their families, they don't get to go home and decompress? So how do you keep a team member engaged right now?
Well, part of it is that one, there is an immense camaraderie that happens amongst teams on board. Most people going in there to work on a ship, they know it's like, uh, don't burn bridges, especially on a cruise ship. Everyone depends on everyone else because it is a tight operation. Of course, there's never enough hands on deck to do all. You guys know it happens whether on land or sea. Never enough hands to do all the work that needs to be done, but they figure out a way, and that's where the camaraderie comes in, right? And that's where I think a lot of great things happen, and for people who work on cruise ships. It's not necessarily going to be, it's not going to. I personally could never do it because I'm not as. I'm just a
You don't
little
want
lazy.
anyone to know
Sorry.
that. You just made it public.
Yes, but yeah.
All right, so we are WTF of Walk the Floor, so we always like to ask our guests as well as their WTF moment. So, since we are talking about the cruise industry, do you happen to have a WTF moment that we can share
I
with our
That you
listeners?
can share, right? Because I'm
Yeah.
sure you have,
what?
with so many
I'm
years, more than one moment, but
right.
one that you can share.
I would say, here's the thing. One really proud moment I had that also made me realize my important role in helping to deliver the customer experience. This was probably 2015, 2016. A cruise company that I worked for just came out with the latest, greatest cruise ship, all the bells and whistles. It's supposed to be like the iPhone of cruise ships where it's all teched out, which is great. They had this great terminal where you can supposedly, I'm sorry, they had this great terminal where guests can pretty much go through contactless. It was when they deployed cameras and RFID sensors, so the guests, all they got to do is they get their luggage tags, they put it on their suitcases and drop it off. They just walk on the ship. No more, maybe we have someone just doing random checks of passports, but most people are on board in 15 minutes. So the check-in, the check-in staff is actually shoreside in the terminal. There's about 30 of them in this brand new terminal. And I generally host media, the press, bloggers, influencers on cruise ships. And I like to walk the path of everything from the curb onto the ship. I want to know every little corner, little cranny, every little shortcut, so I can make sure that my guests, my VIP guests, feel like I'm in control and I'm confident and I'm not misleading them.
You are our favorite kind of leader then.
Exactly.
So in walking through this terminal, the head of the reservations team is like, Harry, can you just is there anything you want to tell us about? Maybe help us be able to greet the guests better, because they are aside from the valet, which is another great episode I really enjoyed. Beyond the valet, the reservations team and the terminal are the first contact for the guests. And, so I'm like, sure, why not? They bring me into this little 20 by 20 room in the back, and then there's 30 people. And, a 20 by 20 room is pretty small. They're pretty much, they surrounded me. I'm able to, reach out and touch their shoulders. That's how close we were. And I don't know what to say. So I gave them my PR pitch, a little 5-minute pitch about the ship, about how all the new things, thanked them for being a representative of the cruise line, and also just talked about how the cool things in reservations that would be implemented in reception were going to help the whole guest experience. And someone actually said in the back, like, "Oh my God, I've never heard it told that way." And I was thinking, like, I thought about this later, and I'm like, you know what? You're right. That lady, and I never got her name, was right, because I'm working in the headquarters in Miami. The ship just docked in New York, and these people live in New York. I don't know how many levels my document had to fall through in order to wind up in New York City with the reception manager.
Wow.
And here's the thing, dilution. She's like reading this and she's not understanding the essence of this. She can only convey this as well as she can. But I think you guys had said something in a previous episode where it's all about taking time and meeting face to face with someone to convey all the intangibles, right?
Yeah.
And so that to me was a real moment where, like, oh gosh, that lady says I helped her realize where she is in the big picture. And by her telling me this, it helped me better realize where I am in the big picture. So that was one of my WTF moments, the walk the floor moments where I'm on the floor.
That's a lovely story. And I wish we could. Lovely lady, if you're out there somewhere, reach out to Harry so that he knows who you are. This is great. Talk about influencing, right?
Absolutely.
Michele, have you ever been on a cruise?
I haven't. I can do my happy place is on water, anything on water. And I grew up sailing. Wow. But we've have it on our live it list, but we've never done a big cruise ship just yet. Anything smaller, yes, like charters, yes, but nothing big. It's on our list for sure.
Well, if that really depends, I don't have children. If you have children, I would recommend the large cruise ships. But if you're just traveling by yourself with your spouse or significant other, go for a smaller ship. The smaller the ship, the lesser the children, the finer the dining, and the older the crowd.
Great tip.
Yes.
Well, this was amazing, Harry. Thank you so much for giving our listeners and viewers your insights on the cruise industry. And I think we covered a lot of talking about the similarities from hotels and cruises, but then also to a lot of the difficulties the leadership has to go through.
Absolutely.
With such a large department and so many other factors as well.
I can't believe 30 minutes has passed. Wow.
Yes.
I love talking with you.
Thank you so much, Harry, for your insight.
It's my pleasure. Thank you for having me.
Yes. Thank you.
Thank you, everyone.
Bye.